David and I met years ago through theater.
And she got me into Rainbow Stage. She'd been doing Rainbow Stage before me. And she said, let's go audition for Rainbow Stage. And our first show there together was Funny Girl. And the lead at that time was Edith Gaborik. A wonderful, wonderful lady. One of our stories, one of the things I was thinking about Edda was that she kept herself quite separate from the cast. Absolutely the right thing to do, because she carried the entire show. She couldn't come out and every night with us, things like that, but she was very friendly, very kind to us. And on the final night, she gave everybody a blue marmalade, which was part of the her props in the show, and she gave everybody a blue marmalade. Now I'm just a chorus guy, right? She's the equity actress, so she has different stories than I do. I would be down in the bowels, she'd be up with the stars.
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't.
So I got
lots of those.
I got some stories. This is one that I was telling you on the phone about Fiddler on the Roof. We did Fiddler twice at Rainbow, both of us. And so my stories of Fiddler, one of the things I was thinking this morning, in our first go around with Fiddler, Tibor Fergahazi directed both. And he was a stickler for detail. And in our first Fiddler, he took the entire cast to a synagogue, I think to the oldest synagogue in Winnipeg. And the women had to go upstairs, of course, and the men went downstairs. But it was all part and parcel of Tibor wanting us to understand and get a better feeling of maybe what it was like to be a Jew. And so he gave us a lot of history about that. And then when I was doing, I think it was the first Fiddler, in both cases, the end of Act 1 was after the pogrom and the big fight. And the murdering of the villagers and destroying of the village. There will only be two people left on stage. It would be Tevye and myself in both cases. And the idea was Tevye was Cliff Gardner, of course, always, forever.
Wonderful.
And it would be that during the fight, somebody would come up to me with a club, with a sponge on it, with a blood patch, and they hit me in the head, and I would be bleeding. And so Tevye would come. I would just be dazed on stage in the middle of the stage, and Tevye would come up to me and look at this bloody mess and just shake his head, and the curtains would close. Boy, I got goosebumps. And so one of the times we were doing this, we finished. I had to go back and redo my makeup all the time. And I was going backstage, and so he said, "Wow, does it ever look realistic tonight?" So I went backstage, and I was looking at myself in the mirror, thinking, "Wow!" And I was starting to do the makeup. I thought, "Wait a second, what is this?" And what it was I had at that time they used hat pins to put the blood patch on the club, and one of the hat pins had dislodged. It had gone through my eyebrow and gone into my wig. And yeah, it looked pretty realistic. Because it was my own blood coming down my face. But they fixed that. It never happened again. So that was one of my things about Fiddler. And I have a second one before I get to Joanne and Fiddlers. And that was, there was a performance that everybody talks about at Rainbow Stage. There was an orchestra member who was, I would say under the weather. Maybe
a little slosh.
A little slosh. And Cliff stopped the performance in the middle of the song and had him removed from the pit. So that's a famous anecdote, but I happened to be there for that particular one. Anything else about Fiddler for you?
Well, yeah, I was playing Fruma Sarah up very high on top of this young dancer. And I could see where we were going, and he had it all memorized, but his foot went right to the edge of we were almost in the trumpet section of the pit. So that was one of my exciting, hold your breath and keep singing moments.
Yeah, you played Fruma Sarah both times on the shoulders of somebody, and it was all covered, so you were hoping the person underneath could see what they were going.
Yeah. Second show, we made sure he knew exactly how many steps.
What else? I thought about random. This was in Maine. Brian Foley directed that one too. And in the final scene of Maine, Brian had Robbie Patterson come out driving a little roadster, actual real car, on the stage with Maine in the back with their fur coat on, and just surprised the audience. He drove this little roadster on, and he had
big ideas.
He had fun during practice, Robbie, when that roadster, trying to get it in, not into the pit, and get it out off the stage.
Brian tried to convince the Rainbow production staff to bring a horse in for Oklahoma. He didn't win that argument.
No, but wasn't that Music Man?
Possibly, yes.
And
yeah.
they gave him a huge plastic horse.
Yes.
That they kind of pushed on. He wasn't really impressed. He wanted a real horse, but it was this huge plastic horse that they pushed on.
Yes.
The other thing we remember about Maine was back in the days. Oh, before those massive flies they put in things, we had they were huge sets, and the chorus was always helped to push sets on and push sets off. They were massive sets that we would all get around that we'd store in the back. They don't do that anymore. But that was part of the fun of being in the chorus.
Especially, I remember Carousel. They actually had a carousel on stage, and it wouldn't work one time. We're all trying to get it going again so we can get the lead out to the front.
I was telling this to Joanne this morning, something that we did or I did that she'd forgotten about. Way back at the beginning, I decided that it'd be fun to have sweatshirts or something to remind us. And so what I did was I designed a sweatshirt and went around the cast. I thought it was a great idea. I took orders. I had it made. And then opening night, we get there early, and we would put the sweatshirts on the back of everybody's chairs. And we did that for years, and it became just a yearly thing that I would do sweatshirts for the whole cast and everything, until Rainbow realized, wait a second, we could be making money off this. So no, we didn't do it anymore, and Rainbow started to do it. But we did it for years, and there's still some kicking around from those years. And the other thing that we did for years that we didn't do, that we were talking about this morning, Vic Pynchon, who was around Rainbow forever and ever and was on the board, just a mentor for everybody. He used to do a barbecue for all the cast, all their families. It'd be one of the dress rehearsal nights beforehand. And they would supply all the chips and it was wonderful. And the entire cast, all the crew, we would all go to around Rainbow Stage, our barbecue pits and things like that. And he'd reserve, and everybody would be there
with all their children and
with all the children and families. We did that for years. I don't think they do that anymore.
And we used to bring everybody down to our cottage for a weekend or when we had a day off. And you could hear whatever show we were doing, everybody at Victoria Beach would say, "Oh, the Rainbow Kids are here." No, I was just thinking back in Maine, about Maine. I had to learn, I was 3 different roles. One of them, they made me big, and with this little head, I looked pretty stupid for Mother Burnside, I think. I was also Madame Branislawski supposed to get a Russian accent, and whenever I was asked to do an accent, I tried to get somebody that really came from that part of the world, and I couldn't find anybody from Russia. But luckily, when one of the leads came, I'm trying to remember her name. The closest I got was Slavic, so I came close to it. But she corrected me. She was wonderful, and she kind of coached me and made it even better.
Okay, another story I was thinking of. This is Pirates of Penzance. Bob Ainsley was the director, and it was a really hot summer. I was a pirate, thank heavens, because our costumes were more airy. But
we weren't wearing winter coats. The Fiddler on the Roof.
The police, they actually got their costumes from England, and they were wool. and and they were very heavy and very hot. Well, one day the cast went out to a water slide, Wet and Wild. It was a really hot day, and some of the guys got really badly sunburned on their backs. And what they would normally do under those costumes, they would wear just a white T-shirt, and then the police costume. Well, they went backstage, and what had happened is their backs had blistered in the sun, and when they took off the white T-shirts, it took off the blisters. Yeah, it was a very, very painful show for them. The other thing they gave us during that show were salt pills, which I'd never heard of before, because it was so hot on stage that they gave us salt pills every night.
And while you're thinking of that, I'm thinking of, I guess it was Ziegfeld Follies would be Funny Girl. You're in these really skimpy outfits with these huge, you had to walk in sideways because of the big arms of the costumes. And and you had to do these lovely freezes while you had 20 mosquitoes biting your back. As much as they would spray, sometimes in rehearsals they didn't spray.
So like to Anna Green Gables, Alan Lund came to Winnipeg to Pantages, and Rainbow did a winter show, the first winter show they ever did there. And that was at Pantages, an old theater in Winnipeg. It was the last show they ever did there using the sandbag pulleys. So that was fun to watch them use the sandbags. But it was great. What an opportunity to work with Alan Lund doing his show in Winnipeg. I was the postmaster, so I wasn't into the second act. And but what they did for me, they said, well, let's use you. And so I did wigs. Go figure. At the front end. So I got there and I helped the ladies get into their wig caps and get all their wigs done, which is that was interesting for me. Something to do in the first act anyways.
Alan Lund has a very warm spot in my heart. He gave me my equity card. He was from Charlottetown and he was saying, but I want her. So yes, thank you. I guess I'm thinking of Damn Yankees. We had to do our opening right in front of the audience under almost like what you see in the background, a fence, only you couldn't see through it. And we would sing "O Canada" and then the U.S. anthem that year. And all of the dignitaries were coming. It was opening night. And I don't know if you've heard any pigeon stories, but I looked like Minnie Mouse. I was wearing a black wig, a big red polka dotted outfit. I looked like Minnie Mouse. And I had white gloves on. And we're standing there ready to see, and it's during "O Canada," I feel this white pigeon plop on my black wig. So I look at the people beside me and I start sliding down so that the audience can't see me. And I use my white gloves to get them. Did I get it? And they're going, yes, yes. Unfortunately, I was supposed to go to center stage and sing right now. Nobody would hold hands with me. Everyone else was holding hands to go. Oh, yes, I was doing Oliver. And I guess I started doing, when I was younger, I was Charlotte with the fleas. And I remember getting my first note that my fleas were taking focus. So I had to calm them down because the gentleman playing Mr. Bumble was not impressed. So I learned, sometimes the hard way. Oliver, I was playing Mrs. Sowerberry, I think. Yeah. And she gets locked in a coffin. She gets pushed by Oliver in the coffin. And the coffin lid comes down. And I can hear my 3-year-old son out there, they just locked my mom in the coffin. And I'm going, I'll be up soon. So brought the house down. Damn Yankees blowing the pitch pipe for the a cappella singers on the wrong note. And I could hear the bing, 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 bing. I went, oh, excuse me. Do you want me to try that again? And then I hit the right note. So, and then it did rain one day in the pit so badly, in the orchestra pit, that did we get through that show? Well, I just know we were all swimming in there after.
No, stage crew were jumping. Swam in the orchestra pit.
Yeah, after the show. But nobody got electrocuted. That was the scare. I've done 16 shows for them, and it wasn't just the 16 shows. It was also all the work I'd done in theater for the schools. And I was very honored to be put on their Wall of Fame 2016.
74.
74. And then my last show was 2015, Sister Act. I played one of the old nuns.
Mine was 1981 to 1999.
When did you take up your teaching careers?
In 1966.
So you would teach and then do the shows in the summer at Rainbow Stage?
Yes. Yeah. When I had the chance, yes. And I love Rainbow Stage. We support it in every way we can. Very few shows I've ever missed. It's our largest outdoor theater in Canada.
My husband did a show there. He did No No Nanette with Blanche Lund.
That was back in the days where almost everybody was from out of town. All the dancers, everything. Now it's almost, if not 100% Winnipeg. All the dancers, everything.
So there's not that mix of community as much anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that aspect. Yeah, you're right.
I remember once auditioning for Miss Hannigan, for Annie, and I really wanted to get that role, and I knew that if I auditioned in Winnipeg, I wouldn't get it. So I flew to Toronto. I was from Winnipeg, and really, sadly, as much as I had all this, positivity coming my way, it just wasn't what the people that were organizing Rainbow at that time.
Brian Foley.
Yeah.
Right? That's the director in Toronto that tried to get me to be Miss Hannigan. The audition, I wanted to know what was happening. I had my head against the wall where they were talking, and I heard every word.
I was thinking tonight about Anne of Green Gables. It was a production at Christmas, right at Christmas, and I remember either backstage or we were at a party or something. And I was saying, what a great time of year. We're all working here. MTC had a Christmas show on, so everybody was working there. And across the street was the Centennial Concert Hall, and RWB was working there. All the theaters were working, and everybody was being employed that Christmas. I thought, what a great Christmas.
At one point, somebody brought portable hot tubs, 2 of them in. So after the show, we would all sit in the hot tub. Aloha.
Aloha.